Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to go through the 2026 Dynasty Wide Receiver Rankings. We're just going to keep it casual as the top 12, but if you want my full top 24, top 36, feel free to let me know in the comments. We'll definitely dive more into the weeds for Dynasty going forward. But without further ado, let's get right back into it. So, coming in at our number one wide receiver is going to be Ja'Marr Chase. This comes at no surprise. Obviously, tied to Joe Burrow is definitely a benefit for him. He's only 25.8 years old. Obviously, in the grand scheme of things for wide receivers, this is not very old. He still probably has 5 or 6 prime years left. I think he's just at the tip of the iceberg for where his prime is. Obviously, coming off a monster 2024. A little bit of a letdown in 25, but barring any surprise with Joe Burrow moving on from the Bengals, which I don't think they'll move him. If they do, some teams to monitor. Maybe the Vikings get him to reunite with Jefferson, but this ownership really doesn't seem to be the one that would trade Joe Burrow after paying him a whole bucket of money. So I think you're safe with Burrow and Chase. Obviously, T. Higgins still in the mix is also great for Chase. The 1-2 tandem is really helpful for fantasy and in Dynasty, which is why you'll see later CeeDee Lamb is pretty high for me as well. I like Ja'Marr. I think he's probably the most talented wide receiver in the NFL right now. Obviously, wasn't the greatest in 2025, but still comes in at my number one wide receiver. Number two is going to be the phenom Jackson Smith-Njigba. Obviously, took a monster step this year under Clint Kubiak. Should be interesting to see if he moves on from Seattle. Obviously, he's not going to get fired, but if he chooses a head coaching position, how that'll affect JSN. But one thing's for sure is that Sam Darnold is capable of kind of funding this wide receiver one role. It's not just Justin Jefferson and the Kevin O'Connell scheme. It was actually way more of Sam Darnold being an elite quarterback. And him being tied with JSN is great chemistry. I expect them to get another wide receiver. I know they got Shaheed. He hasn't been fully integrated into the offense, I don't think. So with a full offseason, I wouldn't be surprised if JSN's targets maybe go down. But with teams game planning against the Seahawks, it's really just been take away JSN. So I expect them to get a few more weapons so they're not as one-dimensional. But nonetheless, JSN, top 2, comes in at my number 2 Dynasty wide receiver is a great hold for now. And our number 3 wide receiver is going to be Malik Nabers. Yes, he is only 22 years old. Absolutely shocking. In his sophomore season, obviously the catastrophic knee injury sidelined him for most of the year. He should make a full recovery for next year. But the one thing we did get to see from this year is that Jackson Dart is an elite quarterback. Not as in elite for kind of real life, but for fantasy, he is willing to take shots downfield, which is very good for your Malik Nabers stock, your Wan'Dale Robinson if they re-sign him, as well as Scatabo. This offense should be high-powered. However, I expect their defense to get kind of back to speed under a real head coach here. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're a little bit more low-scoring next year, but with Malik Nabers, probably a slow start to start 2026, but he should be full steam the rest of the way with Jackson Dart, developing that chemistry over the offseason. So he comes in at wide receiver 3 for me. I think the sky's the limit for this kid. He is definitely the most talented wide receiver from last year's draft class, and he should continue to skyrocket up these dynasty rankings. And following him at number 4 is polarizing Justin Jefferson. Obviously, a lot of people would have thought he would have been number 1 going into this year, but bad QB play has really tanked his dynasty value, but not too much in my opinion. I still have him as wide receiver 4, which is still very, very high. I believe in the talent. I also believe that the Vikings will get this figured out. I don't think J.J. McCarthy's the answer, and I think they know that. So wouldn't be surprised if they bring in a veteran like Mac Jones, who can really just get the ball, similar to like Jacoby Brissett, where he's just kind of volume force feeds his wide receiver ones, or in Brissett's case, it was Trey McBride. But neither here nor there. Justin Jefferson is going to be a star if they just have any kind of passing offense to hang their hat on. I know he was seen very frustrated, but how could you not be with your quarterback throwing for 50 yards a game? So really like Jefferson, only 26 years old, still firmly in my top 5. Rounding out the top 5 is Puka. So Puka, many probably would have thought he would have been top 2 in this. He is still 24 years old. However, recent comments, him saying that he doesn't want to play after 30 years old, definitely kind of puts you at a stalemate for his dynasty value. Him and Stafford have been great over the past 2-3 seasons, but we're not really sure how much longer Stafford's got left in the tank. It's probably 1 or 2 more years, and then you're kind of in QB limbo. I expect McVay to get it done with whatever QB is available, but like we saw with Kevin O'Connell, there's no guarantees. If you just miss on quarterback, you miss, and that whole passing offense is completely destroyed. So you run that risk, but with Devontae Adams also winding down in age, this is Puka's offense. He's going to be the focal point. So I think you got 2 to 3 more years of prime Puka, but you might be in for a harsh turn of events after that. So I would hold for now, but definitely look to sell. Maybe mid next year, whenever you feel like the Stafford wheels are kind of coming to an end. And then we got Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's finished as the wide receiver 3 in 3 straight years. He always finds himself at the end of the first round, early second, just screams high value. He is still 26 years old. The Lions will probably try and hire a high-powered offensive coordinator. Obviously, the Dan Campbell offense was terrible, and before it was bad as well. What coordinator, former head coach, probably like a Mike McDaniel, would want to get this job to really just kind of turn these weapons into gold? It makes complete sense, way too much sense, to really just take this team, turn it over, and get another head coaching gig. And the focal point of this offense is Amon-Ra, and he's going to get involved. He always gets his. With a struggling offense this year, still finished wide receiver 3. It's the mind meld he has with Jared Goff that's really kind of not you can't put a price on that. So I would definitely hold on to my Amon-Ra shares. I think he's as safe as they come. We've seen it 3 straight years. 26 years old, not a problem. He feels like a guy who operates in the slot. He can play for another 5-6 years and be extremely effective. Number 7, like I mentioned before, it's going to be CeeDee Lamb. A lot of people would think that he would be lower, maybe even lower than George Pickens. However, as of now, we don't know where George Pickens is heading in free agency. Wouldn't be surprised if Dallas keeps him. I would be stunned if they let him fall away. I'm just not sure if they'll franchise tag him or if they'll kind of Jerry will pay him big money, which we know he doesn't really like doing just off one-year wonders. So I expect CeeDee Lamb to still be the main guy in this Dallas offense. And why I'm so high on him, only 26 years old, also tied to Dak Prescott, who just loves to throw the ball. Dallas was number 1 pass rate over expected this year. I really expect them to continue this. This defense needs much more than one offseason to get corrected. So I expect the Dallas Cowboys to throw the ball and CeeDee Lamb to continue to be productive. These past 2 seasons, he's missed times with injuries. And granted, they haven't been like long-term significant injuries, but he's just always been on the injury report this year with the ankle. You're never sure if he's 100%. I'm not going to kind of bet against the injury, so obviously it's not a trending stat of how often guys get injured, so I would still ride the wave with CeeDee Lamb and one of my favorite buy lows for Dynasty. Coming in right after him is going to be Nico Collins. A similar deal with the quarterback play. I love him with C.J. Stroud. However, they need to take a page out of Dallas's book and really figure out this offense. They've relied on the defense for the past 2 years. But I think the development of Jaden Higgins, getting Tank Dell back, will really bring out the best in Nico Collins. He's getting kind of double coverage bracket. All of the above. He's just been getting shut down recently just because teams know that he's really the only threat to their defense in the whole game. So I would definitely keep my eye on Nico Collins. He could skyrocket back up in rankings. He is surprisingly almost 27 years old, which is, yes, on a little bit of the older side, but the youth of C.J. Stroud, I think he still has another gear to unlock. I expect Nico Collins to be the main plan as far as this Texans offense development, kind of their coordinators. They're going to scheme up plays for Nico. And they have a proven head coach. Really good stability with Nico. I think he's a very safe dynasty hold. Number 9, we got Drake London. I know you can make the argument that he should be a lot higher. The only thing that draws me back is just the QB limbo that he's in. Is it going to be Penix? I know coming off another knee injury, the same knee injury he sustained in college. Or are they going to bring back Kirk Cousins? You really just don't know. They don't have many draft picks to really make a big splash at quarterback or the money to make the splash play to give him a lot of money. They already did that with Kirk Cousins. It seems like he wants out. So you might just be in purgatory here with the Falcons QB, but if it is Penix, obviously that's great for Drake London. He obtained a 26% target share with Penix. He was dominant this year in fantasy when healthy. I think he's just kind of scratching the surface, only 24 years old. He's going to get paid monstrous money, which he absolutely deserves. He's going to be a threat downfield, obviously the main part of the plan for the Falcons going forward. I expect them to keep Kyle Pitts, so another weapon in here with Pitts, Bijan, and Drake London. I think he's a great buy for now, but I would definitely wait until late offseason to see how Michael Penix progresses, because I wouldn't be too bullish on him next year if you're rolling into the season with a Michael Penix that hasn't practiced in the offseason or a first-time starter. So I would definitely keep your eye on that. But rounding out our top 10 is going to be Rashee Rice. Probably the opposite of Drake London. The talent side, Drake London clears him by a mile. But in QB play, Mahomes clears whatever combination of Penix and Cousins that you throw by a million. So Rashee Rice finds himself in the top 10 just strictly based off opportunity. With this Chiefs offense, expect them to get a running back in the offseason like Breece Hall, someone to make this offense more dynamic, less one-dimensional. They've seemingly been like or running through the air these past few years. Expect them to find more balance going forward. Rashee Rice, with no Travis Kelce likely, is going to soak up more middle-of-the-field targets. Rashee Rice, just a great value. I'm not sure you can debate his talent level all year long, but he just gets it done with Mahomes. He's his favorite target. Worthy hasn't really developed, so really like Rashee Rice. Obviously, the off-the-field stuff is not of liking. It feels like every year he's kind of intertwined with some bad reports, so hopefully he cleans that up. But he is firmly in my top 10 as long as Mahomes is fully healthy entering week 1. And following him is our first rookie here with Jordan Tyson coming out of Arizona State. If you haven't already been told that he is the best wide receiver in this draft class, I know you can argue Carnell Tate, Mekhi Lamond, but it's Jordan Tyson. He's the best all-around prospect. He can go play X. He can play the slot. He's really everywhere. And with the teams needing wide receiver at the top of the draft, don't be surprised if he falls in the lap of Tennessee or Cleveland, where he can just soak up all the targets in the world with a young quarterback and develop that relationship. So really like Tyson in this spot. He really ranks ahead of all the draft class wide receivers this year, just strictly off talent. I think he's more talented than McMillan, obviously with Bryce Young and all the other wide receivers. I really like him going forward. I think he can profile as a right-away top 20 wide receiver in fantasy, as well as down the road he can be a top 5 guy, only 21 years old. I would be trading up for any of the 2026 first-rounders that you can get, because this draft is pretty loaded at the top, like the top 5 picks, and then outside of that drops off a lot, in my opinion. So try and get one of these stars in your dynasty drafts. But capping it off at number 12 is Tedero McMillan. Like I said, just below Jordan Tyson for me. Part of that is talent, but most of it is just I know he's locked in with Bryce Young. Not my favorite QB in the world for fantasy. Obviously, McMillan, very inconsistent during the year, a few splash games, and that just coincides with Bryce Young not being able to move the ball consistently. But in the playoffs, he's capable of winning any one-on-one matchup. He is a stud, but in this Panthers offense, I'm not really sure how it's going to end up. They just picked up his 5th-year option with Bryce Young, but is he the true answer? You might be right back to square one with another rookie quarterback next year. There's just too much in question for Ted McMillan right now for me to put him firmly in the top 10, but he does round out our top 12, and that is going to do it for my top 12 wide receivers for Dynasty. If you want to see more Dynasty content, please subscribe below. Other than that, peace.